The 49ers have won 8 in a row. They're right in position to have home field advantage, maybe even that number 2 seed. How important is that? We'll talk about that next on the Hammer and Nayls Show. Hey everybody, it is Tuesday night. Jesse is back from vacation, and it is time for the Hammer and Nayls Show to kick off. Jesse, how you doing tonight?
Jack, I'm doing fantastic. Christmas was amazing. Vacation was amazing. The 49ers are winning. I'm back with you. How much better can it get, man?
Hey, I got you on here, and it's always fun to chat with you. We always see things from a little bit different angle, which always makes for fun conversation. And I want to start off with something tonight that's not necessarily geared towards the 49ers and where they are right now, but it definitely plays a role in where the 49ers are going, because I think most people expect DeMeco Ryans to be a highly sought after candidate when it comes to head coaching spots for next year. And one of the main names that have been kind of directed towards the 49ers as potential replacement for DeMeco Ryans has been Vic Fangio. But there was some news that's broke over this last few days that Sean Payton's looking to get back into the game, and that he would have Vic Fangio as his defensive coordinator. What do you make of this news?
Man, this one was a little heartbreaking, to be honest with you. I thought, and it still could happen. It's not as if Vic Fangio's accepted anything or Payton's gotten a coaching job, but it sounds like Vic Fangio is not only a favorite to land that job, potentially the 49ers job. And then there's, I forget who it was. I want to say it was, who's the defensive coordinator for Dallas? What's his name? I forget his name.
Yeah, he used to be the head coach in Atlanta.
In Atlanta, yeah. So he's rumored to get a head coaching job as well, and Vic Fangio is on the top of his list, I believe. So there's going to be some competition to get Vic Fangio, who I thought, all right, they lose DeMeco Ryans, no big deal. They can just slide in Vic Fangio, and the 49ers aren't going to miss a beat. But now that doesn't seem so certain. And so I started looking through the 49ers coaching staff just to see if there was anybody who might be in line to take that spot. I think we don't know for sure, but it seems to me as if Chris Kocurek wants to be a defensive line coach. John Holland, who's been a linebacker coach for many years in this league, he even actually coached DeMeco Ryans and Brian Cushing when they won Defensive Rookie of the Year way back when, and has been instrumental in coaching these linebackers on this team. He's a little bit older. I don't know if he wants to continue being a linebackers coach. The one name that stood out to me on this roster of coaches right now that might be a good candidate, and I don't know. I don't know where Shanahan's head is at. There's a lot of guys across the league, and I think it's impossible to know who it would be if not for Fangio. But on this roster of coaches, Daniel Bullock. He's around 39 years old. He's the safeties coach right now, but he's been a defensive back coach or an assistant defensive back coach for quite a few years. He was actually an assistant defensive back coach on the 2016 Jaguars team. The 2016 Jaguars team, which, had Ramsey on it and some other good defensive backs. He played defensive back in the league himself. Maybe he might be a candidate, but man, I don't know. At this point, the 49ers might be scraping the bottom of the barrel for a defensive coordinator, and that is a bit worrisome because I expect DeMeco to get a head coaching job. I think he deserves one. I would be shocked if he didn't get one. So where do the 49ers go from here? I don't think there's any clear answers.
Yeah, I don't think there is either. I think we'd have to look back and through the staff like you've already done, which doesn't the staff has had so much turnover in these last couple of years. It's hard to see anybody really on this staff right now that's going to take over that job or even really go elsewhere. Everybody's so young other than DeMeco Ryans. And the other guys that have more experience are guys that it seems like are pretty well rooted in Kyle Shanahan and working with Kyle Shanahan. So I think we might have to dig a little bit deeper to find out who he's worked with in other areas and see if there might be somebody else that's worthy of coming up. And I haven't done that research at this point, but I agree. I think if Vic Fangio goes in a different direction, that definitely causes a little bit of concern for 49ers fans in terms of who is going to be the next guy, because they had a pretty solid succession plan from Robert Saleh to DeMeco Ryans, and it doesn't seem like there's quite one to go from Ryans to whoever's going to be next once he becomes a head coach.
Yeah, but to be fair, I don't know if we necessarily thought DeMeco Ryans would be the guy. I think we were kind of wondering, okay, who's going to be next after Saleh? Maybe a couple people put DeMeco Ryans as a possible candidate, but when he was hired, I feel like I remember it being a bit of a surprise and like, oh, okay, like, is this going to work? How good's he going to be? And we were pleasantly surprised. And so, again, maybe that person is on the roster. Maybe it is a Daniel Bullock or somebody like that. And we're going to go, okay, is this guy ready? Like, what does this look like? And maybe he does great as well. I don't know, but it is interesting because I do think that coming into the season, everybody thought that DeMeco Ryans would be gone. And that looks to be coming to fruition. But then the natural thought was, okay, Vic Fangio, we're good. In fact, we might be in better hands than we are with DeMeco Ryans. And now that's not necessarily the case. So, things have gotten interesting with this defensive coordinator position going forward.
It sure has. And Randall Riley, he's a member of the Toolbox. He comes in with a good one. He says, Fred's going to play middle linebacker and be the defensive coordinator. No worries. He'll be a player coach. Hey, who knows? I don't think that's not going to happen, but that's a funny one. That's a good one right there. And we also have a new member to the Toolbox, and Scott Hill. Scott, thank you very much for becoming a member. Yeah, I think it's going to be really that's going to be one of the big things to watch this offseason is who becomes the new defensive coordinator. Or somebody in the comment section who said that DeMeco isn't going to leave until the 49ers win a championship. Well, I don't think that's the case. I think he's going to go sooner than that. And the 49ers might even win the Super Bowl this year. Who knows? They might get that big chip everybody likes to talk about. Have you never noticed we've shortened down everything to like little things instead of it being the championship? Now it's the chip. Instead of it being a touchdown, it's a tutty or whatever people call it now. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, everything's shortened as if it was hard to say in the first place.
Right. While I'm at it, Jesse, get off my lawn. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Chill out, old man.
Looking at where this team is, big win over Washington, 37-20. We went into the month of December with the thought of, this is a tough stretch for the 49ers. We're going to find out who they are. And they've blown through this with, all four games, really. None of them have really been close at the end. Looking at it now, we kind of joked about this a few weeks ago, but do you think the 49ers can win out here and get to 13-4?
I mean, not only do I think they can, I think everybody's probably expecting that happens at this point, which is, it's crazy to think about, because the way that they started going into the bye week, you look at it and say, okay, you've got 9 games left. You come out of the bye week, maybe you're going to be an 11-win team at best, a 10-win team. You'll sneak into the playoffs. And then as soon as everything kind of played out and the bye week happened, we started to look at it and go, gosh, I mean, maybe there's 2 losses on this schedule. There's certainly some tests, but probably only 2 losses. Then maybe it, turned into 1, and then they just kept passing all the tests. And so at this point, if you lose to the Raiders or the Cardinals, looking at the state that those 2 franchises are in currently, man, what a disappointment that would be. You know what I mean? Like, you have this giant win streak going on. You expect to win those games. Losing one of those games would really, it would hurt the ego of the fan base because we expect to win those games. All of a sudden you lose one. It's like, okay, like, where do we go from here? Are we really as legit as we thought? The conversation gets really weird if they lose one of these 2 games. So no, I expect that they win both these games. But, then the interesting piece is, if you're going to win a Super Bowl, you're really going to run off 14 straight wins to do that. That's unprecedented in today's day and age. To reel off 14 straight wins and then win a Super Bowl while you're doing that, that's incredible. So we'll see how it plays out, but I expect that they win these 2 games.
Well, I love the fact that you say it would bruise the ego of the 49ers fans. Nothing about the team, but the fact that it would bruise the ego of the 49er fans that they would that they would lose one of those two games. That was fantastic.
For sure.
No, but I agree with you in the fact that you look at the two teams they're playing against, and you look at what the Raiders have put out there, and that should be a game the 49ers should win if they just play anywhere close to what they've been doing. And same thing with Arizona, with they're on their third string quarterback. So look at the difference between third string quarterbacks here. So they should win out. Now, will they, and I like the last point you made was really an interesting one, because you said, winning 14 games to win the championship, to win the Super Bowl. That sounds a lot like, kind of what another rookie quarterback once upon a time out in Pittsburgh won, I think 13 straight plus a couple of games in the playoffs and then lost in the AFC Championship game. Had gone through this long stretch and made it and lost in the big one. Second game right before the big one, I guess. So I think the challenge for the 49ers is really tough, and you're right. It's going to it would force a very long winning streak, and the only way that it wouldn't be that many, I think, is if Philadelphia loses out, though. Correct?
Yeah, if Philadelphia would have to lose, their final two. If Philadelphia wins one game, they're locked in to the number one seed. So, yeah, I mean, not only that, but Philadelphia would have to lose out, and Minnesota would have to lose a game in order for the 49ers to get the number one seed. So not likely.
Yeah. Well, and that brings us to this one is how important is the playoff seeding? Really, right now, we just kind of start touching on this. The 49ers are sitting at the 3 spot. They can get all the way to number 1 if they went out and Philly loses out. Philly's got to, the Saints are going to be an interesting matchup for them. It all, I think, depends on if Jalen Hurts is around. I think that kind of shakes them up a little bit. Is Jalen Hurts there? Is he not? I think that'll be an interesting one. If Philly can lose out, then the 49ers win out. They can have a shot at the number 1 seed, but somewhere along the line, they just need the dang Minnesota Vikings to lose a game here, and they can become the number 2 seed. How important is that whole thing? Do you think?
Yeah, I think the number 1 seed is out of the question. It's not really out of the question, but I'm not looking at it as a real possibility at this point. So if that means no matter what, you're playing in Philly, I mean, assuming you make it to an NFC Championship game, I don't think it's that important. I really don't. I think Minnesota, they smash Minnesota, whether that's home or away. I think being home would be great. I would love to be home for as many games as possible. But when I really look at the landscape, the NFC, all those teams and all those possibilities, I don't think it really matters for this team. I made the point a couple weeks ago, like, hey, if you get into the final week, would you rather have the number 2 seed, or would you rather rest all your players in that final game? And I personally would rest my players. That's just me. You haven't had a bye week since week 8. As I stated, you're going to try to win 14 straight games. That's very, very hard to do. I mean, it's almost damn near impossible to do. And you're going to try to do all that to win a ring. I think the rest for me is more important than the number 2 seed, but that's just me. No team would ever play it that way. I highly doubt that. Shanahan is going to play his guys. I think Brock Purdy could use every single rep. And so I could see why they wouldn't go that route, just because the more reps that Purdy gets, conceivably, the better that he will be. But man, I don't know. To me, I don't look at any of these teams and think, oh, wow, the 49ers can't beat them. In fact, I expect the 49ers to beat all of them, home or away, outside of maybe Philly. And to be real with you, Philly right now is very beatable because of the injuries they have. Hurts should be back, but they lost their right tackle, who's arguably the best in the game right now. He's out for the rest of the remainder of the regular season, possibly into the playoffs. And then they lost their nickel corner, who's out indefinitely, most likely going to miss the rest of the season. So, things are starting to fall the 49ers way, where you've got an Eagles team who is the clear front runner. They're starting to fall back at the wrong time. The 49ers are ascending. I don't know. I would take the rest, but that's just me personally.
Yeah, the one thing that worries me is in order for the 49ers need Minnesota to lose a game if they're going to get that number 2 seed. And quite frankly, the one team that I don't want to see in the playoffs right now, would probably be the Green Bay Packers. I don't want to. I get the issues that they have. I don't really want to see Aaron Rodgers against the 49ers. I think Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback that's out there amongst the quarterbacks that are going to be in the playoffs. If Green Bay gets there, I think they have the number one quarterback in the playoffs. And as the number 7 seed, I know that game's at Levi's, but that's a game that would scare me. I think in a lot of ways, I'd rather have the 49ers sit either at number 3 or number 1. Let Green Bay go out to Minnesota and play out there again. Instead, or whoever that team is, and maybe take advantage of it. And I think that it all breaks out fine for the 49ers at 3. You win at home, you go on the road to Minnesota if that's where it goes. If Minnesota wins week 1, that's not a bad deal, because you look at, compared to last year, they're going, if you go to Minnesota in week 2 of the playoffs, you're playing in a dome, so you don't have to worry about the weather. The weather is going to be perfect for you, and you're playing against a team that your defense is much, much, much better than. And I think that really fits in well for the 49ers. And then I really think that it's going to be the 49ers and the Cowboys when all is said and done. I think the Cowboys are the one team that can get through, Philly. round 1 they can get through round 1 of the playoffs. They can get through Philly. I think they've shown the ability to beat them, even though Jalen Hurts wasn't in that game. And then you have the championship game here. I really think everything is pointing towards 49ers Cowboys in this NFC Championship.
And I was on the same page with you a couple of weeks back. I'm like, listen, it could be a 49ers Cowboys championship game at Levi, because once you get a divisional game in the playoffs, all bets go out the window. But assuming that Philly gets healthy, they get Lane Johnson back, they get Hurts back, man, I don't know. Watching them nearly lose at home to Gardner Minshew, I'm like, I don't know if they can beat Philly. I think Philly might just be that much better, but it is a possibility. It's not impossible. The interesting thing is this, though, Jack. I'm pretty sure that Minnesota plays Green Bay here in this next upcoming week. Well, Green Bay's fighting for their playoff lives. In order for Green Bay to make it, they have to beat Minnesota, which then naturally moves Minnesota to the 3 seed, the 49ers to the 2 seed. So you see how this is starting to head. I really do think the 49ers are going to end up that number 2 seed. I do think Green Bay is going to be that 7th seed. Some things have got to happen, but I think that's probably going to be the matchup that we get. And, classic matchup. We'll take it. The 49ers beat Green Bay, then they get Minnesota at home, assuming everything goes chalk. And then, you're traveling to Philly, or you're welcoming the Cowboys, and shoot, if it goes the way that you think, they might have 3 straight games at home, and that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I look at this and I keep seeing everybody over in the comment section telling me that the 49ers own Aaron Rodgers, or Rodgers isn't the same without Adams. I look at it as I always base things off of the quarterback matchups and the defensive matchups. And Aaron Rodgers is going to have his trouble with the 49ers, but if you look at this 49ers defense, the reason that it's scary is the one spot that scares you about this 49ers defense is their pass coverage. They're nails against the run. They're very good at their pass rush. If their pass rush doesn't get home, their pass defense struggles, and it's happened repeatedly. And I know Rodgers played like garbage last year in the playoffs, but he also beat the 49ers in week 3 here at Levi's in a game that was really tough on them. So that's the one matchup that I don't think really works out well for the 49ers compared to everything else that they could face. So that's the only reason why I go there.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, if my option is Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, who, by the way, their 2 rookie receivers are starting to really this is the thing about rookies. Rookies aren't rookies once the postseason starts, because they've had a whole season, and they've got 2 really good rookie wide receivers that are no longer going to be rookies. They have a full season under their belt. They're going into the playoffs. Those are good players, regardless of how young they are. And so you've got good players there. You've got a good running game. You've got the better quarterback. You have a defense that has players at all levels, a good defense. I think they beat Green Bay. I'm not terrified of Green Bay, but if my option is Green Bay, the Commanders, Lions, or Seahawks, I think the Packers are by far the most complete team of all those, and the team that would pose the biggest threat. So I would prefer to not play that game, whether I think they're going to win or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be one of the tougher ones for sure. Kind of just changing up gears a little bit. When we went into the show, we were going to talk originally about our big takeaway from Washington in that game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it kind of still can be, but I think the question that I have for you is how good is Brock Purdy playing? How good do you think he is, or is there anything coming away out of that Washington game that makes you think that he's playing at a higher level?
I mean, I feel like this is a loaded question. And the only reason I say that is because it depends on where you're coming from. Are you asking how good is Brock Purdy playing as like the franchise quarterback, or are you asking how good is Brock Purdy playing as the last pick in the draft? Because I think those are two different questions. First of all, I think either way, Brock Purdy's playing well. He's playing astronomically better than where he was drafted and for a rookie. I will say that. Whether he was, to be real with you, whether he was a first-round pick or a seventh-round pick, just as a rookie, he's playing way better than what you would expect for a rookie to play. So I want to give him credit there. He is playing good football regardless, but like, is he playing good enough to put this team on his back if they need it? That I don't know. And I'm not saying he's not. I just don't know. We haven't seen it. There's so much out there that we don't know about Brock Purdy because it is only 4 games deep. He's passed every test thus far. All he can do is put on the field against the teams that are there to challenge him. And he's passed every test. I think when I looked at this Washington game, I thought to myself, all right, this is the only real challenge that he has in the regular season. I get the Dolphins were a good team, and there were some good teams or playoff teams that they faced, but none of them had playoff caliber defenses, in my opinion. Brock Purdy isn't facing the whole team; he's facing the defense. So when I looked at Washington, I said, okay, this is a foe that can really make things difficult on him, and I believe they did just that. However, Brock Purdy responded. And he responded in a big way at halftime. And for any rookie, I talk about Trey and how he made the adjustment against the Texans and how impressed I was with that. I'm just as, if not more impressed with what Brock Purdy did against Washington because it is such a good defense. For him to play as bad as he probably did in the first half and come out in the second half and absolutely tear it up, that shows the cojones that this kid has. So he's playing great as far as that goes, but there are still so many unanswered questions about Brock Purdy. If the 49ers are down, they need to score a touchdown. They have minimal time to do it, and it has to be solely on his right arm and not in a situation where they get the ball at the 40-yard line or inside opponent's territory. You got to go the length of the field. Can this kid do it? I'm not saying he can't. I just don't know the answer to that question. And so there are still questions out there that remain to be seen. But, Brock Purdy's playing good football right now. He is. And I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think you can say that he's not playing good football because he is. He's playing at a pretty good level. Yep. He's making throws. I think I asked the question because I think he is playing good. I hear some of the comments that are being made about him, and I do kind of shake my head a little bit because there are some things about his game that aren't necessarily, I think if you take Brock Purdy right now and you compare him to Jimmy Garoppolo, there's a difference in that he's hitting the deep. There's a difference and there's not a difference. They're very similar guys in what they do. His mobility is better than Jimmy Garoppolo. That's plus. His mobility is kind of like Jimmy Garoppolo in 2017. Remember Jimmy Garoppolo in 2017? He can move around and he can make plays with his legs and make throws on the move and things like that. Like we hadn't really seen until right before he got injured again this year. But he was doing it more often. You look at the deep throws. He's hit those right now. He's 4 of 7, so he hasn't thrown them a whole lot, but he's at 4 of 7. That's pretty good, 57.1%, which just happens to be the same number that Jimmy Garoppolo was at in 2019 when the 49ers won the Super Bowl. There's a lot of similarities between these two guys. And so I think it is a loaded question in the fact that he is playing good. How much better than Jimmy Garoppolo is he really playing, which everybody seems to be saying, he's the next great thing. I think it's interesting. You go to this game against Washington, for example, even before I get to the game against Washington, you've talked a lot about when it comes to Trey Lance, not having Christian McCaffrey, not having George Kittle and the impact that had on his stats. And when it comes to Brock Purdy, it's, look at everybody he's playing with and all this kind of stuff, whatever. There's all these different things. And, well, look how good Brock Purdy is playing, even though he didn't have Deebo Samuel. And I just kind of point out, well, yeah, he's playing really good. Look at the numbers he put up. And the 49ers did a pretty good job against the Rams without Deebo Samuel and Juwan Jennings, right? And so I just look at it, and I don't think there's a difference between the two, but I don't think the separation is quite what everybody's making it out to be. You look at the game against Washington, for example. The first drive that they score a touchdown on is a 71-yard drive. He completes one pass on that drive. It's a big one on the third down. But other than that, he has two passes knocked down. And then you have a 71-yard blast from Ray McLeod. And I think on that McLeod touchdown, you got to point out the blocks. That's just all those guys, the right guard, the right tackle. Willie Snead, his only snap of the game, makes the final block to spring him. It's just fantastic stuff. But other than the opening possession of the second half, they went 4 of their last 5 scoring drives were less than 30 or 34 yards or less. A 34-yard touchdown off of the turnover on downs when they stuffed Heineke on the quarterback sneak, and then a 6-yard drive, an 8-yard drive, and a 34-yard drive. It wasn't like 33, excuse me. It's not like they were really moving the ball in big chunks in the second half to blow up that game.
Yeah, and it was like that a big chunk of the game, actually. I mean, if you really look at it, since like opening kickoff, it seemed like the 49ers started at the 40-yard line and beyond the whole game. The whole game, they sat either in Washington territory or right near Washington territory. And, that's credit to the defense, credit to the special teams, also credit to the offense. Even if they don't score, they got enough first downs to be able to flip field position. Everything plays into it. But you're right. I mean, a lot of those scores and those drives were very, very short, to say the least. Meaning if you got no yards, you were kicking field goals or attempting field goals. And so it's interesting. But it's tough because I don't want to say that's not Brock Purdy's fault. He can only do what he can do, but those are context things that you have to look at when you're overall evaluating a player, and right now it's really tough to say how good he is. Yes, he's playing really good, but how long does that last? Does it last forever? Does he only improve from here? That's also a possibility. It's not as if it's a guarantee that he's going to get worse or he's going to fall off of a cliff here. He could just steadily improve, and this is who he is. But we don't know that. Like, we don't know that for sure. And there's so many sweeping judgments that are being made about him. Well, he's this. He's the starter next year. He's the future. We should pay him immediately. And it's like, hold on. Like, let's trade Trey. Trade Trey. Pay money to do so, because trading Trey is not just trading Trey. You're actually going to pay more money to trade him than you are to keep him. So that's an asinine statement in itself. And then it's like, oh, well, rip up his contract and pay him, which you can't do. He has to play 3 years before you can do that when you're drafted. But these are statements that are being said after 4 starts, man. Like 4. Just can we calm down a little? Or three starts in 4 games. Can we just calm down a little? Because here's what's also going to happen. The legend of Brock Purdy is only going to grow over these final 2 games. You think the Raiders are going to challenge anything they're going to do? Gosh, no. Do we think the dumpster fire that is the Arizona Cardinals is going to put up any threat to the 49ers? Absolutely not. So then we get to the playoffs. Like, let's see what happens then. You know what I mean? So I do expect that Brock Purdy is going to continue to play well. I personally don't think if they lose a Super Bowl or don't win a Super Bowl that he's going to be the reason for it. So this is not a hate thing. This is just hey, I want to pump the brakes and a wait and see thing. That's where I'm at with Brock Purdy.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's making them some really good plays. He's definitely a part of the reason that they're winning. You look at it's interesting when you look at his overall performance really from over the last 2 weeks. You had a real good first half in Seattle. You had a second half that wasn't very good. He was only, I think, 5 of 16 in Seattle. He wasn't good in the second half there. He had a couple of big plays, but he wasn't all that great. He had a really nice touchdown to Kittle. That was a terrific play. But overall, his performance in the second half in Seattle left a little bit to be desired. It's part of why it was only, the score it was. And then in the game against Washington, he kind of started off in that same way. So he kind of went through a mediocre stretch there in two halves, a half of one game and half of the other. He played better in the second half against Washington. 11 of 13 is nothing to sneeze at. And we've talked a lot about Jimmy Garoppolo. People talk a lot about Jimmy Garoppolo, and they're right when they talk about the yak. I mean, that's a point that you can't argue about, as the benefit that he's gotten from the yards after catch. And you look at Brock Purdy's performance on Saturday, in the second half, the touchdown throw to George Kittle was a 6-yard pass. It was a 33-yard touchdown, but it was a 6-yard pass on a 27-yard run. The other big play to Brandon Ayuk was, I think, about a 15-yard pass and a 40-yard run. I know his overall stats are better than Jimmy Garoppolo in that category. His yards after catch number is lower than Jimmy Garoppolo. I looked at that earlier today. I find it just, I think these guys are in a really good spot. I don't know. That's, he might be the reason that they win the Super Bowl. If they win the Super Bowl, he might not be. I think it's one of those. It's very similar to Joe Montana, right? If you go back to Joe Montana's time with the 49ers, other than the Super Bowl win, the first Super Bowl in 81, where he had to make the play at the end of that NFC Championship game to get them to the Super Bowl, you look at the rest of those games, and those were walks in the second half. The win against the Bears in 84, 23-0. They just walked through the second half of that. The game out in Chicago when they beat the Bears to go to the Super Bowl, it was 28-3. That game was done at halftime. The game against the Rams out here to go to the Super Bowl in 89, they walked that game in the second half. It was close in the first half, but by halftime it was 21-3. And then, the next year it was tighter and they lost. So I think that could be what we see with Brock Purdy. And it kind of seems to be what we're seeing. They have just so much talent on this team that they can score in bunches, and the defense helps them out.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that Brock Purdy at some point may have to be the reason they win a game, but this team is so good that he may not be. Like, the questions that I have about Brock Purdy may not get answered all the way through the playoffs. They might play with the lead forever. Like, this team is good enough for that. That's a possibility. At least through the NFC, I could see that being a possibility. And again, I believe in Brock Purdy. I've been on the Brock Purdy train since 2020. So it's not as if I think this kid's a scrub. I think he brings a lot of good to the table. I think that I would be lying if I didn't say that he's surprised me a little bit to be playing this good this early. But he's a kid that I thought had all these levels of talent. There are still some questions that I have, and I think it's fair to have questions after 4 games. I see Spy vs. Spy says, I'd like to know how many years Jesse has as a scout. The same amount of years as you do, bud. So if you think after 4 games that he's elite, and I say, hey, I'm not saying what he is or what he isn't. I have a feeling what he is. I think I know, but I don't know for sure. You know what I mean? So if I'm just saying, hey, can we chill out a little bit? We've seen this before. If Jimmy Garoppolo is a great example. He went 5-0 to end that season in 2017. Okay, he got the big payday. I get it wasn't as spectacular as this. He's not putting up I get all that. But if you look at how they started in 2019 and some of those runs, let's not forget the 49ers were the second highest scoring team in 2019. They put up many, many games of 30 and even 40 plus that year with Jimmy Garoppolo at the helm. How many of you were questioning Jimmy Garoppolo as they were making that run in 2019 until, they got to the playoffs and it was like, oh, golly, like, this isn't what I saw during the regular season very often. You know what I mean? I think there were a few of us. I know myself after that first Seattle game, I was like, I don't know, man. Like, this guy might not be it. There's some questions here. I don't think he can be the guy to lead us to a Super Bowl, but we'll see. So players can play well for long periods of time, and then all of a sudden they don't. And we realize they're not the guy. So all I'm saying is listen, you can have your opinions. I'll have mine. I think that everybody would be better off if they waited on players before they made sweeping judgments. That's my only thing. But if you want to say that he's Joe Montana, then shit, I'm not a scout. Maybe you're right.
No, I think that you and I have a big disagreement in terms of Garoppolo, what he means to the team. I think, but at the same time, I do think that there's a bit of what Garoppolo did is helping Purdy and vice versa. The difference is that, Purdy's hitting some deep shots right now. And, the other thing, and people keep pointing this out to me, Purdy's a guy who's making his fourth start. You compare his numbers to Garoppolo, who's been in the league for 7 or 8 years or whatever it's been. Whatever. And as far as, having to wait so long, you can get an idea on a quarterback within 6-7 games. You get a general idea. Now, making a sweeping judgment saying he's going to be the guy, that's a little bit different, but you can get a pretty good idea whether a guy's good or not. It's not very often that you're going to see a guy who comes around and after 6 games, he's playing like dog meat, and all of a sudden, 2 years down the road, he's lighting up the league. The guys like Josh Allen are far and few between, right? So, and then really quick, the Joe Montana stuff. Here's the thing. I'm not going to stop with the Joe Montana stuff, because if you listen to what I said, I didn't say that Brock Purdy is Joe Montana. If you listen to what I said that Joe Montana, in the Super Bowls that he won, in the NFC Championship games that he won to get to those Super Bowls, in the second half of those games, other than the NFC Championship game in 1981, he didn't have to make the big play in the second half because they didn't. Now, in the Super Bowl in 88, he did, right? He had the drive and he had the play. He did what everybody thought he could do and what he did back in 81. But in 84, 88, 89, those were Super Bowl teams that walked through the second half of NFC Championship games. You want to argue with me? Go look it up. And I'm not saying that he's Joe Montana. There are attributes about Brock Purdy that are very Joe Montana. His ability to move, for example, like a couple of things that he's done, where he's the throw that he made in Seattle, where he fell, got up, made the guy miss, and threw the completion. Even on Sunday, it was an incomplete pass, but his ability to make that defensive end miss, those are things that are like Montana-esque in terms of movement abilities that we haven't seen from a 49ers quarterback in a long time. And so is he Joe Montana? No, nobody's saying he's Joe Montana, but there are attributes that are similar. And you can say guys are like Joe Montana without saying they're Joe Montana. And last but not least, this is my channel. So if I want to say the guy's like Joe Montana, I'm going to say he's Joe Montana. Don't tell me what to do on my channel. There you go.
I think it's funny to me, and I'll answer this question, and I'll answer it in 2 different ways. So first of all, the comp is like style of play and how you have to get it done in the NFL. Christian Ponder and him have to get it done similarly. Now, that doesn't mean he can't do it at a level higher than Christian Ponder. But when you look at his skill set, you can say it's the same as Joe Montana, or you can say it's the same as Taylor Heineke, Christian Ponder. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean he's in, or Drew Brees, right? With some mobility. Like, it depends on how you want to spin it. I just feel like if you are looking at a player and you're looking at Brock Purdy, unless I say this guy's a Hall of Famer, he's the starter for the next 10 years. If I say anything other than that, it's hate. And all I'm saying is, like, let's just wait a little bit. I'm not saying he is or he isn't. I'm just saying, like, let's wait a little bit. You guys can do what you want to do. I'm waiting. I'm not going to make an assessment off of 4 games. I didn't do it with Lance. I'm not going to do it with him. To me personally, he's playing phenomenal. Again, I just said there's no way you can say anything other than he's playing really good football right now. I don't know what that means for the future. I don't know what that means next week. I don't know what that means in 4 weeks. I don't know what that means next year or 10 years. I just know right now he's playing good. That's all I really care about. But if we want to look forward into the future, I don't know. I don't know. And I don't think anybody can say for certain that they know either. But unless you're willing to crown him now, you're a hater. So I guess I'm a hater.
Well, and it is what it is. I mean, you have been very high on Trey Lance, so that makes it very difficult for people to see past it. and it is what it is. We come on, we talk, we give our opinions. I think it's interesting. I think Brock Purdy. I really look forward to what's going to happen this offseason. Trey Lance is not being traded. Trey Lance is going to be a 49er next season. Trey Lance is going to be a 49er moving forward. You made a really good point. It does not make financial sense for the 49ers to move off of him. It doesn't make sense from a team building standpoint for Trey Lance not to be here next year. I think you take the ball, you roll it out, and it's Brock Purdy against Trey Lance. May the best man win. Whoever makes more plays, that's the guy that becomes your starting quarterback. And who the guy that doesn't gives you one hell of a backup. And I think that's the way you go about it. And I think it's going to be fun. Right now, I see people saying, enjoy it. Do you think that I don't enjoy watching the 49ers play right now? It's way more fun. I'll tell you this. You get a lot of hits, and it's really easy to come up with goofy things or different things to get people riled up when the team's losing. But when the team's winning, it's a lot more, at least for me, it's a lot more fun to cover a team that is playing well than a team that's playing like garbage. Like the team that played through the first half of last season, the first 7 weeks of this season, it gets hard to watch some of that stuff. It's not fun for me to watch a team playing bad, not playing up to their potential. It's way more fun for a team to win and to be talking about a team that's winning. So, am I enjoying it? Yeah. Am I asking questions? Yeah. Because I think Brock Purdy is really good. I think he has a chance to do some really good things. I think everybody needs to realize if the 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl, they're going to have to do something that no team in the history of the NFL has done. There's been 55, 56 Super Bowls that have played. There's never been a starting quarterback in the Super Bowl that's been a rookie. So if they're going to do it this year, it's going to take something that's never happened before.
You know what, though? Here's what I'll say, and this is why I'm having fun with the situation. When Jimmy Garoppolo was playing, I mean, we don't fully know how things are going to play out, but we had an idea how that was going to play out. I know that no rookie quarterback has ever won the Super Bowl, but that doesn't mean Brock Purdy can't be the first, right? No. Like Brock Purdy's playing at a level that I think most rookies don't play at. And especially when rookies do play at this level, they usually aren't on this good of a team. Like those two things don't go together. So the fact that he's on a great team and he's playing at this level, this might be the only time we've ever seen both of them together in a cohesive marriage. So that means that they are in a unique situation, unique enough to where maybe they could win the Super Bowl, right? With Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't think there was any chance. I'm sorry. I never believed in it. I also said that I thought it was disrespectful after one game to say that Purdy was better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I can say with confidence right now, I've seen enough. I don't know who Purdy's going to be long-term, but at this very moment, in my opinion, I do think he's better than Jimmy. And if I thought Jimmy was good enough to possibly make it to a Super Bowl, then maybe Brock Purdy's good enough to win a Super Bowl. Time will tell, but that excitement is there. And I do think this team certainly can make runs. So there's excitement there, and then again, too, like, I know that I'm like the Lance guy in the community. And so a lot of people are like, well, if it's not Lance, like you're going to hate on anybody else. Listen, I said a million times over, Lance is a guy who I thought was going to still do. I think is going to be a very good player in this league. But I don't know that. Just like I don't know what Purdy's going to be. Like nobody knows for sure. We have opinions. I do think Lance is going to be a very good player, but bottom line is Lance is not available right now. Brock Purdy is everybody's quarterback. We should all be excited about Brock Purdy. Let's see what happens, and in the future we'll go from there. But listen, Brock Purdy, I've liked for many years now, multiple years. I saw Bay Area Baller pop in and say that I told him back in 2021 that yes, I've been a Brock Purdy guy for a few years now. I really do like Brock Purdy, but at the same time, I don't know what he is. I like him. I like what I've seen. I don't know if that's enough for me to just go all in and say, this guy's the future forever. I don't know that. I don't.
Yeah. And here's the thing when it comes to bury a ball or love him. And he says, I don't know, poor Christian Ponder, because of Jesse, he's out here catching strays. He's just sitting at home with, trying to chill and enjoy the weekend. And people are real. But you got to remember, Christian Ponder, he actually had a season when he was 10-6. It's not like he was. I mean, yeah, you look overall, it's not very good. But he had a year in which he was 10-6, and the Vikings made the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. I don't think he played in the playoff game, but he got them there. Also, hey, Christian Ponder might not have had a great NFL career, but at some point he was okay because he won 10 games 1 year. Debuta coming in real quick. It says, just busting your chops, Jesse. Love the content. Keep up the good work, guys. Purdy looks like a young Brett Favre minus the interceptions. Oh man, now we're getting
minus
crazy
the arm strength. He doesn't look anything else.
I mean,
listen,
minus the height, minus the arm strength, minus the the record number of interceptions. There's some other things that I hope that Brock Purdy's not doing that Brett Favre's done in the past. So, yeah. We'll leave it right there. We'll stop there. Good job, Jack. Stop. But no, hey, who is Brock Purdy? I think he's a pretty good quarterback for the 262nd player picked in the draft. He's playing at a high level. I think, and I understand the excitement when you're not losing. I think you might have said this on somebody else's channel, Jesse, at some point, but there's a lot of 2017 Jimmy Garoppolo and 2022 Brock Purdy. I think there's a little bit of that too. And I think that comes, what I'm saying by that is the way that people, the fans, the excitement around the fans with Big Brock.
And let's be clear, like as a fan, you should be excited. I don't want to gatekeep and say you shouldn't say whatever, or you shouldn't be excited. That's not how I evaluate players. As a fan, if I didn't have a channel or have a platform, I would probably just be fanboying out and be super excited and say, this guy's the next great thing. Because that's what I did with Jimmy Garoppolo. I didn't have an obligation to look at things logically. I was just a fan. But when you're on this side of things, sure, I could have that same mentality. I'm sure a lot of you would love it. But I also think that's boring. If you never have an opinion, you're never willing to go against the grain, and you're just like, yeah, I'm a fanboy and everything's great all the time. Like, okay, cool. I'm sure there are channels out there that are that. That's not me. So if I'm not your cup of tea, like, cool, I'm not your cup of tea, but I'm always going to be honest in my assessment at that very moment. Doesn't make me right. Doesn't make you wrong. I'm just letting you know how I feel in that moment. Like it, love it, take it, leave it. I don't care. I really don't care.
And that's the facts, Jack. All right. Now, real quick, I want to throw this one up. I think this is a good one. Gerald says, Purdy executes Kyle's playbook better than both Jimmy and Trey. And Gerald, I do not disagree with you. That's one of the things that I haven't. One of the things that I mentioned during the game against Seattle in the first half was it just, I'm sitting here watching, my girlfriend was sitting next to me, and I said to her, this offense just looks so much smoother with Brock Purdy in the game than Jimmy Garoppolo. And I mentioned it on Twitter to our buddy Ryan Hensley. He was in our comment section a few minutes ago, in which it looks like the offense isn't fighting against itself anymore. So yeah, I think he does execute the playbook better. The offense is flowing a little bit better. I think it helps that they have so much talent, but it's all just flowing better. What do you think on that?
Oh yeah. There's no question. Like right now, based off of what we've seen, Brock Purdy looks better than Jimmy, which in turn has looked better than Trey Lance in the small sample size. There's no argument there. Like, Brock Purdy looks really comfortable. He looks poised. And again, to me, I was impressed with what he was doing against those other teams. Washington is really, it was like, okay, this I'm more impressed with. I understand a lot of them were short drives and whatever else. We can nitpick all day long, but to see them really put his back against the wall in that first half, he didn't play good football. He just didn't. But I expected that could be the case because Washington has a really good defense. Then to watch him in the second half come out and Kyle to have confidence in him, for them to just start throwing the ball all over the yard and for him to do it, shoot, the throw that I think not enough people do talk about is the Brandon Ayuk throw. The throw to Kittle, for the touchdown was a good throw, but I felt like Kittle was, wide open. He hit it, whatever. The best throw of the day, in my opinion, was the Ayuk one, the deep dig across. I thought that was great stuff. So for me, Brock Purdy, again, he's passing every test along the way. He may continue to do that. I just don't know. There are other things that I want to see before I say, okay, yeah, this guy's the it thing. But so far, so good. And he continues to pass every single test and doing it at a high level.
Sorry, it was cut out. When you're saying the throw to Ayuk, are you talking about the one where Ayuk's coming from the right to left and the linebacker hits him? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was a good throw. There was a lot of really good throws in there. The ball that he threw to Kittle on the first throw, second throw of the game, I think it was, whatever it was, the play action over the middle. I thought that was a really nice one because of the anticipation that he threw that ball with. There were a couple of I just felt like there were a couple of balls that weren't really well placed that could have helped them out. I feel like he missed a touchdown. I think he missed 2 touchdowns to George Kittle watching the film. One on the completion to Christian McCaffrey for 6 yards. I think it was the second possession of the game. They have Kittle running deep down the seam, but he's not reading the left side. He chooses to read the right. If he had read the middle or the left side, I think he has Kittle down the middle wide open for a touchdown. And then the play at the end of the game, it was a completion that got him down to the 1, and they scored on the next play. If he makes a better throw right there to Kittle, that's a touchdown as well. He kind of threw it behind him. But, I mean, overall, he's playing at a very high level, and I do think that he's executing the playbook better than both of those guys. I think the biggest thing with him, and I think part of the reason why this offense flows so well, you can't really quantify this, but you and I have talked about this before, Jesse, is that Kyle Shanahan knows what he's going to get. When he calls a play, I think he knows what he's going to get from Brock Purdy. And I don't think he quite knows what he's going to get at times from Trey Lance and maybe even sometimes Jimmy Garoppolo on that. But I think that's partly why the offense is doing so well. It's way easier to call plays when you know what your quarterback is seeing, and I think they're on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's certainly a comfortability. I mean, Shanahan is clearly comfortable with Brock Purdy, and why wouldn't you be? I mean, those were all the reasons that I like Purdy. For when he was coming out, hell, not even when he was coming out, going into the 2021 draft when the 49ers were at 12, I had sent my buddy a text message. They were getting ready to play Oregon in a bowl game. And I said, hey, watch this kid, Brock Purdy. He's an Oregon fan. I'm an Oregon fan. I'm like, watch this kid, Brock Purdy. I'm telling you, this kid can be good in the league. He's got pretty much everything you can look for, except for maybe the arm strength. Like, that's the one thing. He's not the biggest guy, but size to me can be a bit overrated. As long as you can make the throws, you can see over the line. You're not like Kyler Murray, maybe a little bit too small because he's not throwing over the middle a lot, but Purdy's not so small that he's not able to make throws over the middle. So, back then I was like, man, there's a lot to like. And all those things are coming to fruition. And actually the things that weren't necessarily strengths and things that I thought he needed to work on so far haven't come to fruition. I think the play where he spun out, did the double backspin and threw the ball away. Now, those are plays that concern me because you saw those in college and he would do those things and then the ball gets tipped. It's a pick six and crazy shit happens. But in this instance, it worked really well. And it's like, okay, well, that's probably where Jimmy would have taken a sack. You know what I mean? So right now it's working for him. So I don't know. I don't know what there's not to like about what we've seen from Brock Purdy because he's doing a phenomenal job. He is.
You know that Iowa State defeat over Oregon left a sour taste in your mouth when it came to Brock Purdy. So every time you say something negative about Brock Purdy, we know where that's coming from. It's because he beat Oregon in that bowl game.
That's true.
Right?
That's very true.
That's how we know where it's coming from. Now, do you have a show that you need to run to?
Yeah, I do. I've got my show that's supposed to be starting right now. Not a big deal. I got it all set up, so I can be a minute or so late.
Okay, I got a couple of super chats. Did you want me to do you want to head out over to your channel and I'll take the super chats?
Yeah, you do that. I'll go get set up on my channel and we'll get back at it next Tuesday.
All right, perfect. So everybody, it's in the comment section, those super chats. Go ahead and hang on. I'm definitely going to get to you. Jesse, thank you so much for joining. It's always fun to do the show with you, man.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, for sure. Good one. All right. Well, he took off real quick there. And then we have a real quick couple super chats. I want to hit these up. John B says, Purdy is a good story for now, but Trey is still the Niners quarterback of the future. Trey's upside is higher than Purdy and Jimmy, and he just needs more reps. Again, I don't disagree with this. I do think that Purdy's a good story. I do think that the upside of Trey Lance is potentially better. The potential of Trey Lance is better. I think that's what you're getting at. Because we don't know. We've got to see that upside in order for it to be more than just potential. But yeah, the upside potential of Trey Lance is better. And I do think that I don't think he's do believe that Trey Lance is going to be back next year, and he's going to be fighting for that. And that goes right into what Fortnite Faithful. Thank you, John, for your super chat. And Fortnite Faithful says, I just want to know what's the rush to trade Trey. Even Brock will be QB1. Niners need good young backup anyway in case QB1 gets hurt. Keep both for a year. I agree with you here, Fortnite Faithful. It makes total sense for the Niners to keep them both. It's $10.2 million on the cap for both those guys to be there. It makes no sense to move off of one. 49ers, one of the things that's when their seasons have gone sideways, it's been because they don't have good backup play. You look at 2017, 18, and 20 for examples of that. When they've had solid backups, they've gone the distance. 2019 made it to the NFC, to the Super Bowl last season with some help from their backup, winning a big game against Houston. They were able to stay alive in the playoff hunt and get all the way to that NFC Championship game. So it makes total sense. And like I said to Jesse, I don't know if you heard it earlier in the show, you keep bringing both these guys back. You roll the balls out in starting in March throughout the May or whatever it is. Once this offseason program starts, you roll those balls out. You let Purdy and Lance fight it out, and whoever the best quarterback is, that's the guy that leads you forward. So thank you for the super chat there. And that's going to be it. Jesse had some stuff that he needed to get to because he's got a channel heading over there at the Last Second Sport. So if you're not already tuned into his channel, go ahead and make sure you do subscribe to his channel. E. Kim, good to have you on board. He says, "Hey Jack, good to have you." I think it's going to be an exciting time for Niners to have a couple of games ahead of them. And I just want to say thanks to everybody for taking the time to join us today. It's been a lot of fun. I know Jesse and I always enjoy talking to you. If you guys can do me a favor before you head out, hit that like button. The like button is the biggest thing you can do for us, because the more likes our shows get, the more our signal gets pushed out to other people to see them. So please subscribe. As my buddy Raphael 5629er says, like and subscribe, everyone. So yeah, please hit that like button. And if you're watching the show and you're not already subscribed to the channel, and you like what you're seeing, hit that subscribe button as well. The other part about it is, hey, I like having the back and forth with you. So if I tell you you're wrong, doesn't mean that I think all of your takes are bad. So keep coming back and telling me that I'm full of beans, and we'll have a good back and forth. It's always fun that way. So thanks everybody for taking the time to tune in. Like, subscribe. I'll be back on Thursday with some more shows. I'll be back with Rob Shue for the Hammerhead show on Thursday. And as the Rocky Mountain Razorback says, likes are free. So hit that like button as often as it lets you. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll talk to you soon.